The envelope on the kitchen counter has your loan servicer's name printed in the corner, a name you haven't actually read in 3 years. For 3 years, the only number that mattered was zero. $0 a month. You stopped seeing the student loan line in your budget the same way you stopped seeing a traffic light that's always green. Then the light changed. Inside that envelope is a date, and the date starts a clock. And here's the strange part. The clock isn't counting down to your first payment. Alex tore his open last Tuesday. The number that actually scared him wasn't even on the page. Here's the truth this entire video is built on. The garnishment everybody's terrified of, the one that can take 15 cents out of every dollar you earn, has an off switch, and the only people it ever catches are the ones who never flip it. Alex's plan for 3 years was simple and, let's be honest, pretty effective. Don't open the email. It worked right up until the email showed up on paper, and he's not alone in this. Alex is one of 7.5 million people whose repayment plan just got erased, all getting the same envelope in the same few weeks. There's one move that turns the whole clock off, and we'll get to exactly what it is. But first, you have to see the clock, because almost everything you've heard about it is slightly wrong, and the wrong version is the one that gets people garnished. Let's lay the clock out honestly, stage by stage, because it's been reset, rearmed, and re-explained so many times that even the people running it lost the thread. The plan was called SAVE. A federal court ruled it illegal in February of last year, and in March 2026, the Department of Education told 7.5 million people to get off it. Starting July 1st, 2026, your servicer mails the notice. From the day you open it, you have 90 days to pick a new plan. That 90-day window is the only part of this clock you actually control. And we'll spend the back half of this video on exactly how to stop it there. At Mr. Sense, we spend an unreasonable amount of time reading the paperwork that's designed to be ignored. So if you've ever let an official-looking envelope sit unopened because opening it felt worse than not knowing, you're exactly who we make these for. One money trap, broken all the way down every other day. Quick gut check on whether you're even in this. The average federal student loan balance is about $39,000, though that average gets dragged way up by giant graduate school loans. So the typical borrower actually owes closer to $20,000. Those are balances among people who borrowed at all. And for plenty of you, the number's bigger, and you already feel it. Maybe you know your number by heart. Maybe you've been carefully not knowing it. Either way, here's what's about to happen to it. Now watch the clock speed up. Miss the window, miss the payments, and at 90 days late, the damage hits your credit report. Keep missing, and at 270 days late, you're in default. Default is where the clock grows teeth. That's when the government can start pulling money straight out of your check. No court order required. Up to 15% of your take-home pay, gone before it ever reaches your account. On a normal paycheck, 15% is most of a car payment, taken every 2 weeks automatically for years. And here's where the version you've heard is wrong. The fine print version reads differently than the headlines. As of January 16th, 2026, that paycheck garnishment is paused, frozen. The government switched it off and, as of right now, hasn't announced a date to switch it back on. The smart guess, and it's a guess, not a policy, is that it rearms sometime this fall. So when somebody tells you the garnishment starts the day your 90 days run out, that's just not how it works. The 90-day clock starts the path back to repayment. Missed payments take 90 days to bruise your credit, and 270 days to reach default, and only then, and only once the freeze lifts, can anyone touch your paycheck. For a system whose entire job is collecting payments on time, losing track of whether anybody owes anything for 2 solid years is, let's call it, a bit of a range issue. And don't mistake paused for rare. Since the start of 2025, more than 3.6 million people have fallen into default. That's roughly one new default every 9 seconds. The first thing default does, long before it touches a paycheck, is gut your credit score. The average hit is 91 points, dropping overnight, and it sits on your report for about 7 years. 91 points is the gap between qualifying for a car loan and getting laughed out of the dealership. Paid for one missed window on a debt you could have handled with a $10 form. We've got a name for the whole machine. The notice, the silence, the credit hit, the default, the slow rearming of the part that empties your paycheck. We call it the garnish clock. It's the loudest thing in your financial life that makes almost no sound until it's already too late. And if you think this is only a young graduate problem, meet the part of the clock nobody talks about. The Consumer Financial Protection Bureau found that about 452,000 borrowers over the age of 62 are in default on student debt, and most of them are already collecting Social Security. Here's what default does to them. The government can garnish the retirement check too. In 2001, that happened to about 6,200 people. By 2019, it was 192,300. That's not an accounting error. And it's not a generation that overspent. It's Grandpa Joe who co-signed nothing, borrowed for a degree decades ago, and is now watching a slice of a fixed income vanish for a loan he genuinely forgot was still alive. And the Treasury has an even quieter move. Default also lets them grab your tax refund, the entire thing, including the part that's the child tax credit. The design is almost elegant. Wait until a struggling family files for the one refund that feeds their kids, then take that specific one. So that's door 1. Do nothing, and the clock runs the whole route. But there's a door 2, and Lisa is standing in it. Lisa teaches 4th grade. Her starting salary this year is $48,112, a raise on paper that, after inflation, was basically a rounding error. On the old plan, she paid almost nothing. But because Lisa works a public service job, there's a repayment plan that doesn't just keep her payment low. It counts every single payment toward forgiving the rest of her balance after 10 years. Same balance, same teacher. One door garnishes her in 2027. The other one cancels her loan in 2034. The only variable is which form she fills out in the next 90 days. Lisa's the hopeful version. Diana is the one that's going to make you a little angry, and her number is the cruelest one in this entire video. Hold on to her. Diana takes home about $2,400 a month. She's a single mom, 2 kids, 1 income. The math already tight before any of this started. On the old plan, her student loan payment was 0. Now, run her down both doors. Door 1 is the one that happens automatically if she does nothing. She misses the window, the clock runs, and eventually 15% of her pay, about $360 a month, gets pulled straight off the top. $360. For Diana, that's the grocery budget. The whole grocery budget, gone. To a machine. Now door 2. Because the new repayment plan subtracts for every child she's raising, Diana, the same income, same 2 kids, qualifies to pay $33 a month. $33. So here's the cruelest arithmetic in this whole video. The system is prepared to spend $360 of her money to collect a debt that $33 a month would have quietly handled. $11 of garnishment for every $1 the plan would have asked. And she is one of the 7.5 million. Let that land. Diana survived daycare on a single income. She survived a pandemic. She survived every curveball the last 5 years threw at her. And the thing that finally comes for her paycheck is a form she didn't know she was supposed to fill out. That's the garnish clock. It doesn't punish the people who can't pay. It punishes the people who didn't open the envelope. The comments are already writing themselves. And the objection is a fair one. So let's give it the strong version. You borrowed it, you signed for it, you pay it back. So why is any of this news? And the law actually sides with the harshest version of that. A federal appeals court ruled that the old SAVE plan was illegal, that the Department of Education never had the authority to forgive debt this way, and that the people who built it knew Congress hadn't signed off. The forgiveness was never the deal. The loan was the deal. There's even hard data behind the anger. When researchers at the J.P. Morgan Chase Institute looked at who stopped paying after the pause ended, they found that even among the highest earners, people who could clearly afford a payment, 54% simply never resumed. So the objection isn't wrong. If your point is people should pay their legal debts, you're standing on solid ground. But here's what that argument misses, and it's the whole reason this video exists. Nobody here is telling you to dodge the bill. The new plans we're pointing you toward are you paying it back, legally, on the books, on a schedule. The choice was never pay versus don't pay. It's pay $33 a month on a real plan versus lose $360 a month in garnishment on the exact same debt. If you genuinely believe people should pay what they owe, then you, more than anyone, should want them to pick the plan, because the plan is how they pay. So the decision rule is dead simple. If you have a federal student loan and you got the notice, you pick a plan inside the 90 days. There is no version of responsible that includes letting it slide into default. So here's the off switch. We've been calling the whole machine the garnish clock, and every clock has a way to stop it. This one's is a single web page in about 10 minutes of your evening. There are 3 things to know before you sit down. First, know what happens if you do nothing, because doing nothing is itself a choice the system has already made on your behalf. If you never pick a plan, you don't stay at 0. You get automatically placed into the most expensive standard repayment on the menu. It's the only menu in the world where doing nothing orders the lobster. No application required. Second, know that the clock has been quietly working against you this whole time, even at 0. Interest started growing again on these loans on August 1st, 2025. So while your payment read 0, your balance didn't sit still. On a $39,000 balance that's roughly $200 a month in new interest, stacking on a balance you aren't paying down. The meter runs while the screen says 0. The 0 was never free. It was a tab. Third, And this is the actual move. Go pick a plan. Here's exactly what that looks like with Alex. Alex makes about $45,000. He sits down, opens his servicer's site, and sees his options laid out. The new income-based plan, the one launching for everyone this July, would put his payment around $170 a month. Not zero, but a real survivable number. And on that plan, as long as he pays on time, the government actually covers the interest that used to pile up. So for the first time in years, his balance stops growing. He picks it. 10 minutes. That was the entire emergency. Now compare that to the door he didn't take. If Alex had ignored every notice, the system would have dropped him onto that priciest standard plan, a payment built with zero regard for what he actually earns. And if he couldn't keep up, the 270-day clock would have started anyway. Same guy, same balance. The form he filled out was the only thing standing between $170 he can plan around and a number designed without him in the room. Now look at what those 10 minutes really bought him. Say it out loud. 15% of every paycheck, that's the number sitting on the other side of this. Alex just traded the 15% of everything version of his life for the $170 a month version with one form. Remember the one line this whole video is built on? The garnishment has an off switch, and it only catches the people who never flip it? This is Alex flipping it. And think about how backwards the alternative is. The government is willing to break down the door of your paycheck to collect a debt a free form would have settled. The financial equivalent of kicking in your front door to deliver a coupon. And if your income is genuinely tiny right now, the plan doesn't drop you to zero, but it can drop you to $10 a month. Yes, $10. And that $10 keeps you out of default just as completely as a full payment would. So whatever your situation, the instruction is the same 3 steps. 1. Log into your federal loan servicer before your 90 days run out. 2. Pick an income-based plan. For most people, that's the new one. And if you work public service, pick the version that forgives the balance after 10 years, like Lisa's. 3. Turn on auto pay, so a forgotten due date can never quietly restart the clock. That's it. That's the whole defense. You're not getting out of anything here. You're just becoming the person who opens the envelope the day it arrives instead of the day it's too late. The garnishment, the credit hit, the seized refund, the slice of Grandpa Joe's Social Security. Every one of those is downstream of the same small failure, not filling out a form in a window that is open right now. Close that window the right way, and the entire garnish clock just stops. So go back to that envelope on the counter, one of 7.5 million mailed out in the same few weeks. Each one a 10-minute window, and one of them has your name on it. It's not a bill you can't pay. It's a window with your name on it, and it's open right now. Before you click away, if you're in this, still on the old plan, already holding the notice, or just not sure where you stand, tell us in the comments where you're stuck. We read everyone, and the messiest situations are exactly the ones we break down next. If this made the clock finally make sense, give it a like. Subscribe so the next trap finds you before it finds your paycheck. And tap the bell, because the ones we don't warn you about are always the expensive ones. The garnishment has an off switch. It always did. The only thing that ever decides whether it catches you is whether you open the envelope while you still have the time.